taking those from nobody.
Jaylen Brown.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I am your host, Robbie Tay, and I am with my co-host, Seamus, a.k.a. Celtics Every Day. Ian Angelo will be joining us shortly. The Celtics come back home in a little mini-series against the Knicks and get their revenge in a 99-75 blowout fashion win. The Boston Celtics kind of controlled the game after the second quarter. After the halftime, went into half 44-42, winning by 2, came in to the second half, blowing out the Knicks. Seamus, Celtics 26 assists on 34 field goals. How are we feeling about the Celtics win tonight?
Well, some games I feel like we need to recalibrate our expectations for this team because tonight coming in, you look at it and you go, are we going to win? Are we going to be competitive tonight after what happened the last game against the New York Knicks? Yet you look at this Knicks squad tonight, no Derrick Rose, no Kemba Walker, no Evan Fournier, who dropped 41 points on us the other night, and no Nerlens Noel in the lineup either. And with those four guys out of the lineup, those are all four rotation players for the Knicks, very significant rotation players for the Knicks. So the Celtics at home should have been able to pull this one out easy, in which they did tonight. And usually we're not used to seeing that from the Celtics. We always come in a game saying, okay, they should win this one. They should be able to pull this out against this lesser talented team. But they actually did that tonight, and they stayed consistent throughout the game. You know, to get back to where they want to be, they have to start somewhere. I'm not convinced that tonight is the starting point of that necessarily, because we've seen so many times, we've been fooled so many times. However, tonight, good game from the Celtics. Good game. That's all you can say.
Yeah, for sure. It was a much-needed win. They got to start somewhere, and I'm not saying it's starting here. I'm just saying that potentially it's a good place to start. It's a good game to go. I think the second half's a great chance to look at film, dissect what you did well. There's some still things I think the Celtics came in here and didn't do well that they can look at and maybe tweak upon. Celtics really only scored 99 points, not a lot of points that you would normally win a basketball game in. However, they held the Knicks to just 75. So a great game from Boston, I feel like, for a solid 48 minutes. They came in, split the season series in what I think is a much-needed win, especially you never know with seeding. The Knicks might be. You might have a tiebreaker with this Knicks squad. So that was a big win. Celtics have won 3 of their last 4 home games, advanced to 12-8 at the TD Garden. That's huge. You got to take care of business at home. Something I want to talk about here, Jaylen Brown, 22 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists, our player spotlight for the night. First career triple-double from JB. A very, very good game all around from Brown. Seamus, now, something we were talking about last post-game was that the Brown and Tatum's inability recently to feel like to kind of adapt into situations where they need to. Tonight they come in and both kind of just play within the flow of the offense. Brown, a career-high 11 assists. Both really didn't need to take a lot of shots to be productive and have a successful night. What's your take on, Tatum, not just Tatum's performance, but more so Brown?
Well, I think moving forward, this is why this is a game you look at and go, these guys can definitely coexist together. It's just a matter of putting the right pieces around them to excel their talent. And tonight, you look at the team right now, they're nowhere near where they want to be in terms of efficiency, or at least where they should be in terms of efficiency relative to the rest of the league. You still look at their offense and go, there's too many possessions that end in, it's 1 or 2 passes, shoot, and whether or not it's a good shot, just need more ball movement. Sometimes I've said it all year long, more off-ball movement. But you look at a game like tonight, the team is actually moving the ball a ton, which they should be doing every game, and we see sparks of it every game, yet they're not doing it consistently enough. They did it consistently enough tonight. And you look at Tatum and Brown, they were able to play off each other tonight. And Brown, this is one of the best all-around games of his career. Triple-double, first career triple-double for him. Also shot 9 of 15, super efficient on that end, and only 3 turnovers tonight. Still want to get that turnover number down. Hopefully, he's not someone who he handles the ball quite a bit, but he's not, your primary ball handler. So you'd like to see that turnover number go down a little bit. But Jaylen Brown, this was one of his best all-around games of the season. And this is an example where, hey, Tatum and Brown, they can coexist together. It's all about getting the right pieces around him. And at the end of the day, that's really just all you can say about this duo. They're not gonna be broken up anytime soon. We've talked about this so many times, but tonight, definitely a game you look at and go, these guys, they can work when they're on, when they're both making plays for others and both making shots.
Yeah, I think Jalen Rose said it best. Listen, these guys very successful start to their young careers. Have a little bump in the road right now. That does not mean hit the panic button and split the two up. If he actually said this, if the Celtics were to split those two up, it would be one of the worst decisions the Celtics would have made in their franchise history. I completely agree with him. Those two guys are the only two guys, in my opinion, that will keep this team relevant for the next 15 years. Is Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They're not going anywhere. They're here to stay, rightfully so. They're two, phenomenal talents. However, I do think there's a couple things they can do to, switch it up. We talked about that last post game. I think there's some, emotional tendencies that they can do just to tweak, just to maybe have their mindset be in the right place. However, you got to look at the positives. Celtics, coming in with a nice win. Now, Justin and I, if you weren't listening to the play-by-play here, Justin and I, something we were talking about was we noticed how Schroeder didn't really play the third quarter, and he was played stints in the fourth. And you got to think, is Udoka maybe preparing less and less Dennis Schroeder because he might be knowing he's on the way out, trying to kind of get the rotation going without Dennis Schroeder. Is that a possibility?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. I would think up to this point, what is the end game with Schroeder this season? It's basically to, hey, raise his stock enough for another team to go, hey, we need that guy because we want that guy to either A, pay him over the summer, or B, compete this year and go from there and hold his rights over the summer, his bird rights over the summer. And the Celtics, they know he's probably not going to be here past February. And up to this point, he's put together a pretty solid resume this season that shows, hey, I should be paid more than $5.9 million. I think that's very evident at this point. But you look at a game like tonight, and he only plays 21 minutes off the bench. Schroeder, I think next to Tatum, Brown, and Smart, I think Schroeder does not work at all. I like Schroeder's aggressiveness. I like the fact that he's a guy that can score with the ball. However, when we're trying to get ball movement, when we're trying to get others involved and trying to just get an offensive system together, because right now, even this game tonight, we only scored 99 points. It was okay, and we looked good. Our offense is just, it's not up to par with anyone else in the league. And you look at who we have on the roster, and Schroeder does not really work next to Smart. Both of those guys aren't catch and shoot players. They're not guys who are going to shoot anything other than off the dribble. And then same thing with Al Horford and Robert Williams, not shooting bigs whatsoever. And there's just a lack of shooting everywhere. And so Dennis Schroeder, he's not going to be here in a couple months. Maybe his minutes are scaled back a little bit because of his reputation already gained this season and where the team is now going to, try to move on from him. And I don't know, we'll have to see where it goes with Schroeder over the next month. It'll be very interesting to see how much he does play because of his inevitable departure. But tonight, I wouldn't put too much stock in the fact that he played 21 minutes because the matchup, KNICKS, they were a little bit bigger tonight. No guards, obviously, in their lineup, or a lack of guards, I should say, in their lineup. But, yeah, certainly interesting to see where Schroeder's minutes will go moving forward.
Yeah, and Justin and I were talking about this as well, is that the Celtics aren't necessarily out. They're not done. I don't think it would be completely fair to say that this team is done. However, there's a lot of work to get done if they want to successfully have a season that they can maybe make a little bit of noise. Now, right now, there's 2 games back from 500, and they have the Pacers in a back-to-back. The Celtics are going to need to put together a lot more of these types of games if they're going to want to make any bit of noise. And when I mean noise, I mean, actually, hold a solid spot. They are currently 3 games out of the 6th seed, which just that alone is crazy. So there is some work to be done for the C's. I don't think they're necessarily done. I do think they can maybe string together a couple wins if they can, keep playing this brand of basketball. But I'm going to stay true to my statement that, we aren't going to know what this team truly is, the direction they're going to go until the end of January, I think. I think if end of January comes and they're still sitting where they are, you're going to run into a lot of problems. A stat I want to point out, Celtics only took 29 threes tonight. I think that's a positive. I think the Celtics have taken too many threes. And the fact that they were able to kind of take it to the hoop and play aggressive style of basketball kind of worked out for them tonight.
Yeah, and the three ball, when it's, when they get it timely, when they have timely shots with the three ball and actually make the three ball, it's good news, because you look at this team all year long, it's not like they haven't been able to generate good shots at moments. It's the fact that they're not hitting good shots at all. Like, I want to say that we're one of the worst teams in the league at hitting wide open threes. I don't know if that's a stat or not, but someone can go look that up. I'm sure we're near the bottom of the rankings because this is just a bad shooting team. But you saw in the third quarter tonight, specifically late in the third quarter, where the team basically just put it away because, hey, we were able to make shots. And even in the fourth quarter, going on to the fourth quarter, there were a couple of times where, the Knicks didn't come back or anything like that, but you go, this is the moment where this possession right here, they have to convert right here, keep the lead up. The Knicks, you don't want them to gain any momentum. And tonight, the Celtics were able to hit those shots, unlike other nights and unlike all the nights where we see these giant collapses from this team. And like I said, I'm not convinced from this win at all. The Knicks super shorthanded. This is a game that we should 1,000% win every single time. And it was a good game. But you just like to see this, moving forward consistently time and time again. And that's really the problem with this Celtics team, that and the shooting woes that's followed the team all year long. But you saw tonight, they solved it a little bit. You'd like to see this a lot moving forward, but we'll just have to see where it actually goes.
Yeah, and it hasn't been a question if the Celtics can do it on a single nightly basis. It's whether or not they can string together enough wins to have a successful season. 82 games, you're going to have a lot of opportunity to win games, a lot of opportunity to lose games. If the Celtics want to turn this around, they have to prove that they can do this on a consistent basis. They've shown flashes, like we said, of them being able to compete actually at a very high level. They led Milwaukee by 20 on the road. They've beaten Milwaukee. They went toe-to-toe against Golden State. They beat LA at home. They beat the Heat on the road. They went toe-to-toe with Dallas. So they've proven. They beat the Sixers at home. They had a shootout against the Jazz. They've proven they can hang around with some top-tier NBA teams here. It's just, can they successfully put together 48 minutes every single game to have a successful season? I think that's what's in question here. And I think the Celtics, in order to convince people, you're going to have to start doing this probably for about a month of basketball here. I think that they really lost some, just like in a bad relationship, if you screw up enough, you're going to lose the trust. I think the Celtics lost the trust of a lot of fans here, and I think they're going to have to string together some wins if they're really going to want to, to earn that trust back.
Yeah, I would certainly say they lost trust because, from my perspective here, great win tonight over the Knicks, a shorthanded Knicks team. But at the end of the day, exactly what is about to follow this performance tonight. I mean, we blew this Knicks team out. Yeah. Maybe we do get a little bit better over the next, week or so. Maybe we do win a couple of games, pull a couple of games out. But I just don't see the consistency at all in this team. And even in tonight's game, I thought tonight, the start, I know we didn't go down by a ton to start. I know they had at least a 10-point lead at one point. That was early in the second quarter, but I just thought our offense early just was so bad early. We were just not making any passes whatsoever. It was four guys standing around a perimeter. Guy walks the ball up, makes one pass. They're shooting off of that action, or they're not really doing anything with the ball. They're not moving at all. That improved a little bit throughout the game. We saw, obviously, they found and took open shots. However, you just look at the offense early on in the game. That's the offense that we see more often than not. And hopefully moving forward, we won't see a ton of that offense. That's the main goal, I would say.
Yeah.
But just from Ime's comments the other night and just what we've seen from this team all year long up to this point, I have no confidence that this is going to stay consistent over the next week or month or whenever, because you look at all the other teams we're facing, I think other teams actually have game plans. I think on offense, our game plan, give it to the two best guys and let them do whatever. And I just don't think that's going to work in the long run. You have to have the correct pieces around them to make something like that work. And right now, it's just a waiting game. Like I said, just a waiting game for the offseason a little bit. And you take the wins where you can get them like tonight. But ultimately, I don't have that much. I still don't have that much hope for this team moving forward.
Yeah. Listen, I think, like I said,
Not to be negative, though.
No, it's a start, and even so, it might not be a start. But I look at the starting lineup, and I agree that there was a slow start. 44 first half points isn't really going to get the job done on a night-to-night basis. I still hold strong to my beliefs that a starting lineup adjustment should be made, whether that's Grant Williams sliding into the 4 slot, sending Horford to the bench, or sliding Richardson to the 2 slot and Brown and Tatum down to the 4 and 3. I just don't think the Horford lineup, double big lineup, has been consistent enough offensively to sustain enough, production to win games. I just don't think it's possible to keep that lineup on. Obviously, Ian's just joining us. Ian, Seamus and I have been talking about, how you were taking this game with a grain of salt. Yeah, great win. Now do it again for, week, 2 weeks. What's just your thought process after this win?
My thought process after this win is, why can't we do this every night? I know there's going to be times where you play players where, you're going to have your KDs, your LeBrons, your Giannis's, those are players that you're just not going to stop. But why can't we pass the ball like this every night? Why can't we focus on one specific goal every night? And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, this is the potential of the team this is the potential that this team has. Yet at the same time, I don't know what it is and why they can't be consistent with it. Yeah. I don't know really the issue with that, but it was a good win. They played defense. They played offense as well as you could. Jaylen Brown, he played a great game, triple-double. Tatum, solid game. The bench was pretty solid tonight. I mean, there's really not much you can say that was really bad about this game. Granted, their shooting still isn't amazing, but we've kind of expected that at this point.
Yeah, well, you want to talk about shooting real quick. Al Horford, 2 for 20.
I was just
about to bring him up because
I know.
You were talking about ditching the double big lineup, and I'm totally in favor of that.
Yeah,
mainly
same.
Because the argument behind the double big lineup, right, is if Al Horford, if he can hit the 3-point shot, if he can hit outside shots, that'll be a lineup that you can hopefully plug in players next to them. Brown, Tatum, you can stagger them with that lineup, whatever you want to do, and hopefully plug in your shooters off the bench, your Aaron Nesmiths, your Romeo Langfords, and your Peyton Pritchards. Hopefully you'd be able to insert those guys into that lineup like that. But the double big lineup simply isn't working because Al Horford is not hitting his shots at an efficient rate whatsoever. And this year, you look at his first couple of years in Boston. So his first year in Boston, he shoots 35% from 3, almost 36%. Second year, 2017-18, 42.9% from 3. Third year, which is his last year before this year, 36%. So not as high as that 49 mark, but still more than the 16-17 season. But then you go all the way to this season, 27.8% from 3 for Al Horford. He's not hitting his 3-point shots at an efficient rate whatsoever, and that is totally tanking some of these Celtics lineups where you look at it and go, this lineup has no shooting whatsoever already. And Al Horford, a notable shooting big, isn't hitting his shots either. And that's been part of the problem this season all year long. Al Horford, for as good as he was at the beginning of the season, he's certainly taken a dip. And the shooting numbers, they're not great up to this point at all.
And you want to talk about something is, A problem has been is freedom off the bench defensively kind of struggles, gives us sometimes a solid rebounding and maybe a little bit of offensive help. But if you move Horford to the bench, now you've got a big coming off the bench that you can kind of just rotate Horford and in Rob at that 5. I don't know about you guys. Personally, I'd like I said, either Grant to the 4 or Richardson to the 2. And slide everyone down a little bit, going a little bit smaller there. Personally, I'm in favor for Grant at the 4. Just he's been shooting the ball at an amazing clip. Let him sit corner and knock down that 3 when the help collapses on the 2 kids.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We talked about the double big lineup before the season and how it had the potential to be great, but it also had the potential to be detrimental.
Yeah.
And when Al Horford isn't hitting his shots, this team struggles. And I'm 100% in favor of moving Al Horford to the bench. Now, I don't know how he's going to take that. I would assume he would be pretty okay with it if he just wants the team to win. But I agree. I kind of want to see Grant Williams in a starting role. He's been a lot better as a starter than he has off the bench in general.
Yes, yeah.
And he's our best 3-point shooter this season.
He is. Crazy to think.
Which is not
good.
Can we
think about that last season? Last season, if you said anybody last season that Grant Williams was going to be our leading 3-point shooter, you would get laughed at. Or you would get trolled on Instagram like Seamus.
My question is, though, is Udoka going to make that change? Because we heard Udoka at the start of the year. He said, he wants to keep the starting lineup kind of consistent throughout the year. We're halfway through the season now, 1 game away from the midway point. At what point should Udoka now? I think we've hit the point. This game should be a telltale sign. Listen, it's not a big change. Grant has played with Smart, Brown, Tatum, and Rob Will for about this is his 3rd season now. Those guys know how to play with each other. Just slide Grant in. I'm sure Horford's a vet big. It won't be cause locker room issues just to slide him down to the bench and bring him off with Richardson and Schroeder we don't know how long Schroeder's going to be around in town for. But, I think it's a move that could potentially benefit the Celtics in a big way. And listen, like if it's matchup based, so if you are playing a team like, the Cavs, who's a bigger, you sub Grant out pretty soon. I just think the change needs to be made if the Celtics want to take that step and potentially string together some wins here.
Maybe we should wait. Hold up. Maybe we should take this double big lineup with a grain of salt because, just going through some numbers here real quick. So the double big lineup plus Jason Tatum. So Robert Williams and Al Horford plus Jason Tatum plus Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. Their net rating is 15.5. That's a pretty damn good net rating, and that is our top lineup. That is our leading lineup in minutes, 131 minutes together this season. Only 11 games played. Only 11 games played out of 40. But I'm getting to this, though. This is where it's odd. You replace Dennis Schroeder with Jaylen Brown. The net rating, sorry, lost it for a second here, minus 19.9. And that is our second most used lineup in 11 games. So that one lineup
that's the starting lineup when Brown was out. When Brown goes down, Schroeder slides in.
So one lineup is Brown, Tatum, Smart, Horford, Williams. That is our most used lineup. That's a net rating of 15.5, pretty damn good. And then the second lineup is that exact lineup minus Jaylen Brown plus Dennis Schroeder, and it's a minus 19.9 in almost the same amount of minutes. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows you exactly why Dennis Schroeder doesn't really work with his team.
So I don't necessarily think it's Schroeder not working with the team.
I think it's the personnel entirely.
I think that you've seen Schroeder be least successful sharing the court with Marcus Smart. I think that when those two guys are on the court together, it's which one, they're both not great 3-point shooters. They both need the ball in their hands to either play, make, or score to be successful. So they one of the two is going to be useless. Schroeder, not the best defender. So when we're sharing the court with Smart on defense, that's a liability. So I do think we saw it tonight. No Schroeder and Smart on the court at the same time at all throughout all 48 minutes. Celtics benefited from that. And I think that Udoka needs to realize that if Schroeder's going to be here, it's either Schroeder running the point or Smart running the point. If the Brown's out of the lineup or Tatum's out of the lineup, it's Richardson or Langford that gets the call up, not Schroeder. And I think that needs to be seen. Schroeder's role is to play the point guard off the bench, not to play the 2 guard in the starting lineup, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think one big problem I've kind of had with Dennis Schroeder is that he kind of he loses himself in the offense. It feels like he just gets lost from time to time, where it's like, he's on the court, but it doesn't actually look like he's on the court when he's doing anything. And we've said this about some players in the past, like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They've done that in lapses. But it feels like when Dennis Schroeder isn't responsible for scoring the ball, he doesn't do anything else on the court, it feels like. So, honestly, I'm 100% on board to actually trade Dennis Schroeder. I think we should trade him. And when he comes back, I want to see what we have in Pritchard off the bench. I really want to see Pritchard. I know, Rob, you kind of have conflicting feelings about Peyton Pritchard, but I really want to see what he can do with the bench unit that we have. And if we slide Al Horford to the bench and we have him, Pritchard coming off the bench, and we have Richardson in them, I feel like that would be a pretty solid lineup.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think Pritchard's shown that he can be productive on offense in the time he plays. However, you got to think if you're moving Schroeder, what are you going to get in return for him? What are you targeting? Personally, I would move Schroeder for a shooter. I would try
Basically,
to get Dennis. Honestly, that's a great. You might see that on the Celtics Talk Weekly Instagram. That might be a post. Sure, because I do think that if you're going to move Dennis, you got to get a shooter in return.
You have to.
I like Pritchard. Like I said, I think Pritchard offensively, he strung together a couple of really, really good games, 16, 24, I want to say. So I'm not against the Peyton Pritchard idea. I think Nesmith could use some minutes too. It's just, you got to think what team 41 games in is looking for a 1-year, $5.9 million contract in Dennis Schroeder. You got to think maybe the Sixers.
I was thinking Atlanta.
Nuggets.
Maybe
Nuggets,
you could call up Philly
Pacers,
and see if you could get Danny
Pelicans,
Green.
Clippers. Some of these teams that need a guard up to this point.
So you got to think.
Who knows?
And you also have to think of contenders too, because
but
you're not going to get much if you're trading him to a team like the Pistons.
I think is a team really willing to give up? I think the best play here for me is I'd go to Philadelphia and say, listen, can we get Danny Green from you? I think that, I know people don't love Danny Green, but that's a trade I'd be willing to make. I think Green he's somewhat of a shooter, more so than Schroeder. I look at the Hornets. Could you try to swindle someone from Charlotte potentially? I look at Dallas. Dallas is in need of a point guard that's not Luka Doncic. Maybe you can target Dallas and see what you can work out there. The Nuggets, totally. I just don't know who you're gonna go for in Denver. I don't want Aaron Gordon.
Hang on. Here's an idea. Here's an idea.
Mike Porter Jr. on a good price right now.
Yeah.
Austin
Rivers.
I'm sure they're not shopping.
Austin Rivers actually wouldn't be.
Austin Rivers, Will Barton, maybe.
Actually, how about we do this? I know this is kind of going to be a joke here a little bit, but call up the Rockets and ask if we can have. What's his name?
Kevin Porter Jr.?
No, Garrison Matthews. The guy
is he a shooter?
How about this?
He's a shooter. We had him in the preseason, and we let him go, and then he started shooting really well for the Rockets.
Averaging 12 points per game.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Here we go. This is exactly the trade that's going to happen, and everybody's just going to be like,
Seamus called
First of all, let me make sure this works out. Okay, it does. I have it. Dennis Schroeder to the New Orleans Pelicans for Thomas Satoransky's 1-year, $10 million contract. We'll fit him right into the TPE.
I don't hate that.
I don't
either.
either.
A bad addition at this point.
It's not a bad addition. It's just funny to think.
So
Thomas Satoransky.
I mean, he's averaging 3 points a game, but so I think that the Celtics here, right? There's two directions to go with Schroeder. There is. I think that's why I think if Brad's smart, he'll wait till the end of January, see what this team can, if they can string together wins. Say, like I said, we're in the same spot we are now a month from today. I don't think you go with the Satoransky route. I think you go try to get a first-round pick route. Whoever's
to be fair, though, Satoransky, 15 minutes per game this year.
Hey,
Just
look at that.
Justin has made his return.
Surprise.
So Justin, we're
Who
just
would've
talking
thought?
about
He actually came back.
We're talking about what's the move for Dennis Schroeder here. Now, I was just saying, you're a month from now, you're still in the same situation. You're trying to move Dennis Schroeder for probably a first-round pick. Maybe if you can get a young guy for him, that's probably the route you're going with Schroeder, just to lose him for nothing. However, if in a month from today you're succeeding, it's either one, you just kind of say, what the hell, ride it out. Two is, okay, let's go for a guy that will impact us this season. Seamus said Satoransky. Ian wants Garrison Matthews. I'm looking at Danny Green potentially. What's a guy you're looking for for Schroeder to get in return?
No, I want to – somebody I'm looking for it's pretty evident of what the Celtics need when guys from ESPN are saying the Celtics need this. And Bob Cousy just came out and said, look, the Celtics need it. Everybody's saying it. A facilitating point guard, a playmaker to fit along Jason Tatum and Jay. I'm sure it's easier said than done. There's a lot of players out there. There's a lot of contracts that you have to match. But somebody I'm looking for this season, I told you this earlier, Rob. I'd like Brad Stevens to make whatever move is financially smart to set them up for this offseason. Because Seamus and I, after our little team meeting the other night, I don't know if you guys know this, but Seamus and I stayed on the phone for like an extra hour and a half to 2 hours just talking about the Celtics and how this season, a lot of people are kind of overlooking this season, expecting the Celtics to kind of come out and be a championship contending team. This is kind of like a team like, look, I'm putting this together kind of like what we saw in 2016, 2017. Look, we're putting this team together. Let's get some great guys, 1 through 15, maybe not make a finals run, but go out there and compete and see how far we go. This is how I view this as well. Seamus and I talked about this for a good hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, stretch it out, about how this season is more of, look, we built a solid roster for this year that's not expected to make incredible amounts of noise and exceed all these crazy expectations. But let's go out there and try to exceed some expectations. And, Dennis Schroeder, I think you got to send him out. You can't lose him for nothing. He's way too talented to lose him for anything. He signed a 5.9 team-friendly deal. Al Horford is going into the cheapest year of his 4-year contract, but still $12 million, Rob, for a potential backup center that we talked about earlier. That could be pricey. Seamus had mentioned a potential waive and extend. Waive Al Horford, then extend his contract or re-sign him for something to a more team-friendly deal, maybe take a pay cut if he really wants to be a part of what the Celtics got going on here. But I think Brad Stevens needs to make a move that financially that puts him in a great financial position this offseason.
What if I had this question about a week ago, and I think it's crazy, but maybe, just maybe, what if we take a shot on Ricky Rubio being healthy in October and make a trade for him? I could see that.
Trade when you're not healthy? I only asked that because it's 2K.
In 2K,
in 2K,
you can't do that.
It doesn't let me do that. So I don't know if that's a real rule. Can you do that?
I think you're able to do that in the NBA, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why. There has to be something that maybe has to be waived or something of that nature. I'll find that out while
can I ask
we do
you
whatever
something?
here. But Ricky
up?
Rubio, I think, would be a pretty nice addition next to Tatum and Brown, which is crazy because back in 2019, we were talking about Rubio as a potential offseason acquisition before we signed Kemba Walker. But Ricky Rubio, 2 years later, you've seen what he's done with this Cavaliers team in the 30 games that he played there until he tore his ACL, unfortunately. But say maybe, Cleveland, they need a point guard. They traded for Rajon Rondo, but their guard depth is still a little meh. Maybe they go after Schroeder. Who knows? Maybe we call Cleveland. Maybe they call us. And at that point, maybe you do ask for Ricky Rubio and you ask for his medicals and go, well, is this guy going to be healthy by next October? Because if that's the case, maybe that's a guy that the Celtics can and want to bring in.
So
if you look at the Celtics and what they're lacking right now, let's just name it off. I'd say shooting, playmaking, and
Consistency.
Consistency, yeah. So let's think of that. Who's a player that brings playmaking, shooting, and a little bit of consistency?
On the Celtics? Or
no, used to be on the Celtics. Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
Hayward's a guy that is exactly what the Celtics are missing. A playmaker who makes the right plays down the stretch, who will get the Celtics, offensively
Bring them
going,
back.
That's fine.
right? Who would knock down big shots, who can give you 30 if you need 30, but will also give you 10 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists if you need that from him. He's a guy that could run the show if we need him to, and we lost him for scot-free. So if I'm looking at this Celtics lineup and I'm thinking, what's one player you add to this lineup right now that puts them into championship contention? It's Gordon Hayward. So I think we are really, really these past 2 seasons feeling the effect of Gordon Hayward.
Hang on. I got one more thing just to add on to your thing, Rob. If we're bringing back Gordon Hayward, let's bring back the point guard who we originally signed to play with Gordon Hayward. Isaiah Thomas doesn't have another 10-day contract anytime soon, so screw it. Bring back IT.
I don't know. Isaiah turned that down pretty much big time.
Yeah, I know. He's probably never going to come back, but
I think we should sign him just for a day to maybe break this potential curse we might be working with here.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, we definitely have a curse. I mean, it's really not even close. It's definitely a curse. There's no way it's not.
I'm feeling a Babe Ruth 2.0 here.
Oh, jeez. Well, we're going to have to wait a while if we're going to get our next title, if it's a Babe Ruth thing here. But I have an answer here for the injured player question. Can you trade injured players? Yes. You can trade in injured players in the NBA as long as the other team is not under the misconception that they are a healthy player. So basically, you can't be like, okay, well, this player broke his leg in practice. Oh, yeah, hey, Dallas, you want to trade for player X? Like, sure, yeah, trade goes through, and you're like, what is this? They have a broken leg. Can't do that. So that's the only guideline to that. So injured players can be traded.
Well, so
shout out Hoops Addict, by the way.
The Celtics do have some directions they can go here. They take on the Pacers on, I believe, Monday night at the Garden.
I'm going to that game.
Ian will be at that game if anyone else is going there.
You know what game I'm going to? That rare 12:30 p.m. Monday start.
Oh, you're going to that?
Bro, everyone's gonna be half asleep. I swear to God.
Is that one on Martin Luther King Day? Is that why?
Yeah, that is.
So I'm waking up early, not to go to school, but go to a Celtics game.
Well, the Celtics will take on the Pacers. Maybe get back on track here. 7:30 at TD Garden. We will be doing play-by-play right here. Me and Justin will be doing that. If you don't want to watch the play-by-play, go over to Ian's TikTok. You can watch the game there. Sometimes we do halftime. That's something new we're trying to start off with Seamus on IG Live. You can check that out. And then post-game, come back here for the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Justin finally makes a little bit of a return. Guys, before we close out the show.
Heroic return.
Before we close out the show here, final thoughts, guys, on this win tonight against the Knicks.
Do it again.
Just continue to rack up wins. That's the only thing we can say at this point. I mean, we can't get too overzealous about one win. We all know what it's usually followed with, and hopefully that's not the case this time around. And all we can have at this point, I've said it multiple times, all we can have is hope.
For sure.
I think the Celtics played one of their, in my opinion, more exciting games of the season. Like, the energy was there, right? Like, that second half run, like, Rob, we talked it, like, literally right when the play-by-play started in the second half. I had to start it off right away because Smart stole the ball twice, then saved it out of bounds, kicked it to Tatum, and got a three or got a layup. And I love the energy there. And the Celtics obliterated the Knicks tonight. In the middle of the game, it outscored them. I think it was like 58-34 or 55-34, something like that. And just keep that up. You got a little mini series against the Pacers, who is another team that's chasing you in the standings, trying to fight for that play-in spot. Go in and get a couple of wins. I think this is the first time we've seen the Pacers this season, so that'll be interesting.
For sure, a big one for the
possible audition for potential trade?
Yeah, maybe
Question
Malcolm Brogdon of Boston, speaking into existence. Well, like I said, Celtics will look to maybe turn this season around. Maybe they did something tonight. Maybe this means nothing. We've seen it one too many times. Guys, have a great night and go Celtics.